Hello, welcome to News from the Fringe. I'm Chris. So what have I got today? I've got, first of all, a mystery solved. Well, it was a mystery for me and a friend. It's this video here. This is what we saw on the news, and just a little bit of a backstory before I start. I'm sure a lot of people have seen this already. It's an incident in the US where a man decided to swim out into the river. I'm not sure where it was, actually. Let me just have a quick look. Yeah, so it was in Arizona in the US at Tempe Town Lake. And for some reason, this guy couldn't swim, but he decided to swim off away from these police officers, and he ended up drowning. But as we were watching it on YouTube, I think it was, we saw just this little bit here of the video. And we were like, what the hell is that in the background? I personally thought it was just some sort of a glitch with the video. But my friend swore that, he was of the thought that it was the man's soul, the dead man's soul, his ghost. Later, I found this video, which shows the whole thing. And you guys probably have already worked it out straight away, but you can see here that they're standing in front of like a water feature, which blends in with the lake in the background. And there's a footpath sort of between the water feature and the lake. And it's just a man who's gone jogging along the footpath. I mean, it's pretty obvious when you know what it is, but at first we were just like, what? Personally, I didn't think it was paranormal, but I wanted to find out what it was. And there you go. So anyway, let's move on. First story I've got for you is bringing UFOs into the mainstream. British astronaut Colonel Tim Peake spent over 185 days aboard the space station, and he's discussed UAPs during a recent TV interview. Peake, who is no stranger to living and working in space, had plenty to say on the topic of unidentified aerial phenomena during a segment on a British daytime television show called Good Morning Britain. Quote, "I think it's interesting that the US government has made this public. The report is out that there have been over 100 incidents, calling them unexplained aerial phenomena, or UAPs. There's been a hearing in Congress. Of course, there weren't many answers to the questions, because that's the whole point of the phenomena. It's still very much unexplained. But I think it's a good thing that there are discussions being had, and this information is being made available." He then went on to regurgitate some of the old theories that have been around the UFO circles for a while now. I'm not going to bother quoting him. He just mentions some of the ideas that it could be classified projects, could be robotic drones, and the idea that they could be travelers, human travelers from the future. NASA looks to launch new study into UAPs. See, they're using that term again, UAP, instead of UFO. It's to help drop that stigma so that scientists actually pay a little bit more attention. They're not going to be laughed at. In an announcement yesterday, NASA revealed that it had launched a 9-month study which will focus on analysing existing astronomical data for anomalies that cannot be scientifically explained. The details of anything it does find will be released to the public. It is important to note, however, that the study, which has a limited budget of only $100,000, will only be laying the groundwork for a much larger investigation into UAPs in the future. The study will be headed up by David Spergel, president of the Simons Foundation. Quote, "There's a great deal of stigma associated with UAP among our naval aviators and aviation community. One of the things we tangentially One of the things we tangentially hope to do as part of this study, talking about it in the open, is to help remove some of the stigma associated with it. And that will yield, obviously, increased access to data, more reports, and more sightings. So yeah, like I said, it's the mainstream scientific community is trying to demystify this UFO phenomenon. And this is a good thing. We're going to get some big brains involved here. Gary McKinnon back in the news. Well, actually, I won't read this one because it's just another example of this UFO phenomenon being back in the news, and I won't bother reading the article because I'm pretty sure everybody here knows this story. But it's just yet another example of, like NASA said, that, quote, one of the things we tangentially hope to do as part of this study, simply by talking about it in the open, is to help remove some of the stigma. And that's why this is, again, another article doing that, or trying to keep public interest in this topic. So moving on to the next one. Chinese astronomers seeking evidence of alien intelligence. China's Sky Eye telescope has picked up possible evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence. That's exciting. News outlets today have been reporting on the intriguing claim that astronomers at China's 500-meter aperture spherical telescope, acronym FAST, which began efforts to scour the cosmos for signs of intelligent life back in 2020, have picked up several suspicious signals. 2 of these were recorded in 2019 and then analysed in 2020, while a third was picked up this year during observations of extrasolar planets. What makes these claims particularly interesting is the fact that the report, which was published in the Chinese state-backed Science and Technology Daily, has since been deleted without explanation. Fortunately, it had made its way onto social media before being removed. Here's one about ancient Flora. An enormous tree in the Chilean Andes has become a new contender for the oldest living tree on Earth at 5,400 years old. Holy moly! The current record holder for the world's oldest tree is a Great Basin bristlecone pine in California known as Methuselah, which is 4,853 years old. However, researchers believe that they have found another candidate which could be even older. The tree, a gran abuelo, found in the Chilean Andes, could be as much as 5,400 years old. As things stand, however, its exact age remains a matter of some controversy because it has yet to be definitively confirmed and the underlying data has not been peer-reviewed. I just thought I'd throw it in because that's interesting. I reckon it is. It's not paranormal, but a living organism at 5,400 years old. That's a long time. Fishy near-death experience. This one's pretty freaky if you allow yourself to imagine being in this situation. A man who had been out fishing in Thailand almost died after a fish jumped out of the water and into his mouth. That's freaky in itself. In what can only be described as a freak accident, the unfortunate angler had been spike fishing in Thailand's Phatthalung province when a spiky anubis fish jumped out of the water and into his mouth, and then down his throat, where it initially became wedged behind his nasal cavity. Oh man, can you imagine that? That would be painful and it'd block off your breathing. And you can't get it out. Oh, I better not do that. That looks sus. You can't get it out because of the spikes. So it's jammed in there. It's stuck. It's hard to imagine the sense of panic that must have gripped him when the fish then made its way down into his windpipe. Oh no, where it got stuck once again, restricting his ability to breathe. The man was rushed to Phatthalung Provincial Hospital, where doctors took x-rays to determine exactly where the fish had ended up. They were able to successfully locate and surgically remove the creature. I wonder if they had to slice his throat open. And just to finish up, is that you, Steve? Here's a little paranormal story for you. Myself, my older cousin, and both of our brothers were staying in a Scotty camper that my dad had parked next to our home in the country. We decided to camp out there while our parents went into Austin to a comedy club. My parents' house is built in the middle of nowhere, about 12 miles southwest of Wimberley in Texas. We were there playing dominoes, all four of us. My older cousin noticed the handle to the door, which was behind me, was pulling downward. His eyes got real wide as he motioned me to look. I stood up as our little brothers took notice and backed to the furthest corner of the camper. My cousin yelled, "Steve, are you messing with us?" as he addressed what he thought was my dad, his Uncle Steve. There was no reply, and the door handle was back to its normal place. We started to laugh nervously, and then BAM! The door handle twisted downward and the door swung open so violently that it hit the side of the camper and slammed back shut. In a panic, my older cousin and I swung the door back open. He went left and I went right. We circled the camper twice and never saw a thing. Within a minute, we were back inside my parents' house, huddled in the living room and trying to call our parents. Okay, and that's all I've got today. It was a pretty scary one, don't you reckon? It would have been scary in the moment. Alright, so I'll see you next time. Bye.